Hello, I'm Ms. Brown, your media specialist, and I understand you're preparing to create a museum and select items that you want to be in a real museum. So I thought, why not talk about the different types of things that are in a museum that represent a culture, whether it's Hispanic, African American, Native American. Artifacts and items that can go into a museum are very different, and I have a number of things here that I can share with you that may fit into a museum. These are examples. The first thing I would like to show you is this cap and these two security labels. This is when President Obama was inaugurated for the first time in 2009. I was part of the inauguration team. I went to DC, I was trained, and I helped guide people into the mall. So this was historic because, as you know, President Obama was the very first African American and person of color elected president of this country, the United States. So these would be considered artifacts, and they would definitely be items you can put in a museum, and that's why. The second items I have are, that's right, loud cowbells. Why is this important? Because I and 8,000 other educators and students went on a march in March of 2019 to demand funding for public schools. So we went on a protest march, and we did get some of our funding. And it's not the first time I've done this. I've been on many marches before. The very first was back in the 1980s when I was a student at Penn State, when we were protesting apartheid in South Africa. So I have a long history of being a part of political movements. So that's another thing that you could talk about and put in the museum. Artifacts from a march or a movement, and you can include photographs. So speaking of photographs, this is one of my favorites. This is the photograph of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, which is in Selma, Alabama. And in 1965, the same year I was born, people crossed this bridge, and it ended by them being beaten up by police. It is called Bloody Sunday. And they marched across that bridge from Selma to Montgomery to demand the right to vote. So in 2000, I was living in Selma, and I did cross that bridge on the 35th anniversary of this great, or it's the 30th anniversary of this great march, and President Clinton, the only sitting president who ever visited Selma, was there. I didn't get to meet him, but my dad did. So a photograph of something can also be something you can put in a museum because it represents a movement, like voting. Okay, I have some other items here. I have this small little egg. It represents Japan. You may not be able to see it from here, but it has beautiful drawings on it and a scene from China. It might be Thailand. I have not been to those countries, but I have been to other cultures and museums where those cultures have exhibits. And this is actually my mom's, and it's just a beautiful egg, and it's beautifully decorated, and it represents a culture. So this is another item that you can put in a museum. I love pottery, and look at this. This is from New Mexico, and as you can see, it's very intricate and has many designs, and it does represent a Native American nation. I believe it's Navajo, but I can't remember. And I don't have my glasses on, but Sean Williams is the artist and the potter. So I brought this all the way back. I travel quite extensively, and I love collecting art. So a piece of pottery could be an item that you could put in a museum. Speaking of traveling and Native Americans, there are Native Americans everywhere. They're indigenous to North America. So when I was in Alaska in 2017, I picked up these two pieces. Here, this is a raven, and we live in the Baltimore area, so not surprising, and my church supports the Baltimore Ravens. So here is a piece, an artifact that represents that a Native American tribe, and here's a raven's head. So this is other artifacts. It's woodwork, it's artwork, it represents a culture, and this is another item that you could put in a museum. Also, sheet music is something else that you can put in a museum. My mother was a soprano soloist, and she used to sing extensively, and this is her actual sheet music. And what's so impressive about it, she actually has written notes here of some of her sheet music. She has hundreds of pages of sheet music. I just brought these in. It's so cute because this one only cost 60 cents at that time, back in the 1970s. But sheet music, books, artwork, all of these things represent a culture. It tells you something about it. And so sheet music by a great composer or someone who sung, that was very good as well. I've also traveled to Yellowstone National Park, which is a wonderful place, and there I bought a piece of art representing the basins or the buffalo. And one of the things that's so important, this animal almost became extinct in America. So one of the things that's so important is how do we preserve and protect our animals? So even if you're doing South and Central America, what animals, flowers, and plants are indigenous to that part of the world that you won't find anywhere else? You only find buffaloes, I believe, in North America. So if we had totally killed them off, there's no way we would have had them today. So what animals and flowers and vegetables and other things are indigenous and in the countries that you're looking at? So, and that would also talk about food and music. Speaking of music, da 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 da. Okay, I will not play my ukulele, but while I was traveling in Hawaii, I fell in love with this instrument, and for 2 or 3 years I played it. I've been too busy to play, but this instrument was created in Hawaii, and Hawaii also has a Hawaiian shirt. So this is another item that could be an artifact that you can put in your museum because it represents a Pacific culture and a Pacific place, unique to Hawaii. All right, I have some other items here. These are beautiful paintings that was given to me several years ago from a student who was from Egypt. So artwork is something that also can be in a museum that represents a culture, and it's ancient Egypt. So look at the beautiful work here, and it's special paper as well, and I framed them to preserve them. So, have you ever been down under? Well, I have. So I've been to Australia, and the interesting thing about Australia, you have the Aborigine or the indigenous people. You'll hear me say that a lot because I really have a high respect for indigenous people, the people who were originally there. So this is a boomerang, and the indigenous people of Australia, the Aborigines, use this as a hunting tool. And this is their artwork. They use colors and they just use these little dots. And it's just extremely intricate. Now, what's so interesting, when I bought this at the museum, I didn't realize I was buying a weapon. So when I went through customs, I almost got stopped and was prevented from coming back into the United States because this is considered a weapon. It's something pretty to me, but it's actually a real boomerang, and people who know how to use it, if you use a boomerang correctly, you can kill someone. So this is not only an artifact, it's a weapon. So if you're traveling abroad or anywhere, be very careful of what you buy. That was a big lesson for me. It's pretty, but it's dangerous. Not in my hands, well, maybe to myself, but be careful. So also down under in Australia, I got this cap. So Australia is a place that many people from England went to, and this is a traditional hat to keep you safe from the sun and the rain in Australia. So it's a different culture than the Aborigines, but this is a true style. So even clothing can be an artifact. Speaking of clothing, check out my jacket. You notice it has a design? Did you know that these plaids came from the country of Scotland? I've also been to Scotland. This came from Costco, but I have been to Scotland. So anything that you see that's plaid is from that country, and they represent a family's name and a culture. Even hairstyles can be cultural. I have my natural style, but when I was growing up, we permed our hair. We used jerry curls. So even the journey of hair and how women and men wear their hair can be cultural, and it also can serve as an artifact. I'm going to take this wonderful shirt off. Even this shirt, Wheaton, can be used as an artifact because it stands for a school. Also, you notice my jewelry. I have on red, but these two pieces of jewelry, one is Afrocentric, one is from Asia, two different expressions of culture. And these earrings, you can't see it, this is made out of shell. I get these from Thailand. I only wear clip-ons, and I love this particular artist, and I go to two different stores and I buy it exclusively from there because they don't hurt my ears. So even jewelry, hairstyles can be something that can be in a museum. And finally, I have two last items. Yes, even toys can be artifacts that can be in a museum. So this is my Raggedy Ann and Andy dolls, and I used to have them as a kid, but I kept such good care of them, I still have them. So even dolls and toys can be items in your artifact. And the thing that's significant about this, being African American in the United States, there were no black dolls for a very long time. So the fact that these are black dolls or African American dolls is very significant. And finally, there's always wonderful people, and I'm very biased because I love Bessie Coleman. She was the first African American woman to learn how to fly a plane. She had to go all the way to France to do it because no one would teach her how to do it here in the United States because she was African American and a female. So anything that has posters or things like that, this can be in a museum because it represents people overcoming barriers. She had a barrier because she was African American and because she was female. So there's people that you think are significant, you can also use that as an artifact. So songs, music, dance, books, political figures, all of these things represent a person's or people's culture. Food, music, even dance. Those things are all things that you can include in your museum. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and I will be available to help you. So good luck, and I look forward to what you include and what you suggest for the American Latino Museum. Thanks.